Welcome to Beacon to Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Hi, Ted Coley.
Hi, Fred. How are you doing?
I haven't seen you in a while. You have had medical issues we're not going to talk about, but I am happy to see you. It's always great to see you.
You too.
I am the one who's had the medical issues because I had the throat problems on and off for the last year. So whatever you need to do, I want to say publicly, whatever you need to do, we are a team. We're going to do this together. Okay? And we're going to give Ted a big hug. We're so happy that Ted is okay, in theory.
So, have you had any problems with your throat lately? Because I haven't heard. Oh, you have?
Yeah. The acid reflux is coming back, and
Is this just like within the last few weeks?
yeah, within the last few weeks. But I'm fine. I'm not choking. The spasms aren't back. But if I don't get it straightened out in the next couple of weeks, the spasms will be back, and then it'll be back to no fun Fred. So, and as you can see by the smile on my face, I'm sure no fun Fred's coming back. But what is Beacon of Speech? What do we do here? First of all, we are not at your house. We're at my house. It is bright and sunny. We are not used to the sun. We had to close the shades. Okay? So what do we do here at Beacon of Speech? No matter where Beacon of Speech is, whether it's at my house or Ted's house or in the basement or in a field with Fred yelling freedom of speech in the megaphone. Okay? Free speech is under constant assault here in America. The problem is it's coming from two places very hard to fight. From the right in the form of corporate uniformity and to the left in the form of PC madness. Okay? Very rarely in this country does the left stick up for the right or the right stick up for the left when it comes to freedom of speech. Would you agree, Ted Coley?
Yes.
Now, this is where we're going to start today. We are going to compliment somebody that Fred has written bad articles about in the past. Okay? Because I am not above saying that I am wrong. Okay? Do you know who Bill Maher is?
Yes, I do.
Bill Maher is a comedian who advances a certain agenda. Bill Maher came out this weekend and he said on the record, Laura Ingram has free speech and Laura Ingram should have a platform to have her free speech. Laura Ingram, for the uninitiated, she works for Fox News and she got into a battle with the infamous David Hogg. Do you know who David Hogg is, Ted Coley?
Yes, somewhat.
David Hogg is one of the Parkland survivors, okay? He goes on every news show that you can shake a stick at.
I think Rush Limbaugh calls him David Camera Hogg.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to Rush Limbaugh, too. We are going to delve into free speech today. And because we are a free speech site...
We'll deal with Rush Limbaugh in a minute.
Yeah, we'll deal with him in a minute. But I have to compliment Bill Maher because he stood up for the principles of free speech, because nothing Laura Ingram said was a personal attack, right? She was being a bully, then David Hogg was being a bully, but at the end of the day, they were both, Laura Ingram was trying to advance the conservative agenda, and David Hogg was trying to advance the liberal gun control agenda, okay? Things got a little chippy just like in a sporting event. Some sporting events, you take some liberties. Me and Ted, we're playing some sports, and I start doing some pushing and shoving. Things get a little chippy, and sometimes that happens in free speech. Okay? That happens. But I am glad that somebody from the left stuck up for somebody from the right, because that does not happen. Now, how did Bill Maher stick up for Laura Ingram is very, very important, and that's what we're going to delve into. Okay? How are they trying to suppress Laura Ingram's free speech? Do you know how they're trying to suppress?
I think, are they trying to get her knocked off the air? Like,
yes.
Get her taken off Fox News?
But Fox News says...
I know, they're sponsors.
Right. Fox News says, we love Laura Ingram. We love what she has to say. We support her 100%. They cannot get Fox News to fire Laura Ingram, right? So what they did is they went to the sponsors. They said, listen, you pull your sponsorship, Fox News will have to fire Laura Ingram because they cannot afford, and again, this is follow the money, because where do we live? We live in America, where free speech seems to be more and more dictated by who has the money, right? And again, we have said, how many times have we talked about money and free speech? Like every other episode. right?
Mm-hmm.
So poor Laura Ingram, and I say that tongue-in-cheek because ugh, I'm not a fan of... Are you a fan of Laura Ingram's?
Not really.
And I'm not a fan either. But for Fox News, she's not the worst. When I think of the worst people on Fox News, I don't think of Laura Ingram. She's just another Fox Newsian, right? When I think of horrible conservatives, I think of like Ann Coulter, right? When I think of people like, holy cow, if you want to shut somebody up, shut her up. Laura Ingram, that's kind of a head scratcher. But so they attack the advertisers and say, don't advertise. Then once all the advertisers pull, then they're like, well, we're not making any money, so we have to fire Laura Ingram, right? A lot of companies will not stand by their employees. Does that sound familiar?
I don't know what you're talking about.
So Fox is standing by. Now, the reason I bring this up is Bill Maher is right. Bill Maher said this has happened to him before. He worked at a job that said, we're going to attack the advertisers. Do you know the first time that I can remember, and maybe this happened before and I don't remember, can you remember the first time?
Now, are you talking about when Bill Maher was on, what, Politically Incorrect?
I think so, yes.
Is that how they got him knocked off?
I'm pretty sure. They went after his advertisers, and then they
and that had something to do with, he said something about the terrorists on 9/11, how, didn't he say something like, you got to give them credit for like really believing what they believe or something like that?
Right. It was something like that, and ABC said, out you go. But ABC didn't do it because of I don't think they did it because of the advertisers pulling. I think ABC
that wasn't bad what I said, was it? I was just like...
No, but the way he said it, it was in context. He had the right to say it, but ABC would not stand by Bill Maher. They would not wrap their arm around him.
But that is more or less what he said, was that...
I have to look it up, and because we're doing the webcast, I can't tell. But I think that's what it was. Okay, I believe you. Because I don't specifically remember. Okay, so, and again, me and Ted were just talking about my memory problems right before we went on the air. Okay, the first time that I remember where the left or the right specifically went after every single advertiser and tried to get somebody off the air. Because and whoever, ran the place is like, holy crap, what are we going to do? It reminded me of 2012, okay? That was Sandra Fluke, okay? Rush Limbaugh called Sandra Fluke let me make sure, a slut and a prostitute, okay? Now, he did not say Sandra Fluke.
Right, yeah, there's more to it than that.
And that's why me and you are going to swim in it, okay? I pulled up the Rush Limbaugh quote right from rushlimbaugh.com, okay? It said, what does it say about college co-ed Sandra Fluke, who goes before a congressional committee? And again, this girl was not saying it like on her webcast, like me and you are doing it. She went in front of Congress and essentially says that she must be paid to have sex. Okay?
Well, the thing is, she really wasn't even in front of Congress. They made it look like...
Yeah, it was a congressional hearing, and it wasn't... all of Congress. It was a specific committee of Congress. Okay? But what does that make her? And this is Rush Limbaugh speaking off the cuff on his show. It makes her a slut, right? It makes her a prostitute. She wants to be paid to have sex. Right? Now, Rush Limbaugh, he's being a provocateur.
Yeah.
Right? She's having so much sex she can't afford the contraception. She wants you and me and the taxpayers pay for her to have sex, right? What does that make us? We're the pimps. Me and you are the pimps, right? And you're laughing, but Rush Limbaugh, he is having a good time with it. He's smiling. He's like, well, at the end of the day, we're paying for her to have sex. So we're Johns and she's a prostitute, right? We're the pimps, the Johns. Okay, we would be the Johns. Johns. No, we're not the Johns. Yeah, that's right. Pimp's not the right word. So she's not a slut. She's round-heeled. I take that back. Okay? So that's the whole thing.
Round-heeled?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I think it's...
Yeah, I don't either.
It's probably something from before our time. Okay? Now, when they attacked Sandra Fluke, they went after almost every advertiser that Rush Limbaugh had. And they said they're pulling advertisers as fast as possible. And they're like, holy cow, we're going to have to fire Rush Limbaugh. Well, technically, you can't fire Rush Limbaugh because Rush Limbaugh is the EIB
So
network.
is that why he ended up apologizing?
Yeah, because I think he was using, when he was using words slut and prostitute, he probably shouldn't have had so much fun with it. Okay? But
he probably never would have apologized if there wasn't a threat to him losing
everything, right. And again, the EIB network is Rush Limbaugh. So Rush Limbaugh was not going to fire himself.
It always seems odd to me when you force somebody to apologize.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that doesn't mean that they mean it. You're just
Right.
forcing them to go through the motions.
And so in the business world, places like not serious.
Which when you get down to it, it's really all about control.
Right.
See, I'm proving that I have control over you because I'm forcing you to apologize.
Right.
You don't have to mean it, but I'm the one who's in control because you're doing what I say.
Right. Everything goes back to control and money. And so EIB was not going to fire Rush Limbaugh, but who owns Clear Channel, right? Clear Channel pays EIB to have Rush Limbaugh, right? So if all the Clear Channel is the biggest radio network in America, if they canceled the Rush Limbaugh show and then all the other networks canceled, EIB would exist with no customers. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There'd be no radio stations to pay the EIB network. And so if you follow the money, all the advertisers pulling out. Now, Rush Limbaugh said, well, it doesn't matter. They just replace these advertisers with these other advertisers. So, but the rates might have been like X, and then the new advertisers might only been paying half of X. You see what I'm saying? So they are not disclosing because they don't want the tactic to work in the future. Okay? And what did Sandra Fluke, basically, nuts and bolts, she was saying she wanted contraception covered, okay? And her whole thing was, I go to Georgetown Law School or whatever school she went to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, instead of me paying $3,000 for condoms, the pill, whatever contraception choice of her choice is, she wanted the government to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was, Rush Limbaugh was having fun with it, and he was exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
And he was using, provocative language, okay? But at the end of the day, he wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He was basically getting crucified for using colorful language, okay? Because he's saying she wants to have all sex she wants, and I don't want to pay for it.
It is kind of funny because does it really cost that much?
No, he's again using exaggeration because law school is 7 years, and then he's like, well, if she uses this birth control, that would be $500.
No, but I'm saying
year.
she's the one who said it costs $3,000 a year, right?
I don't remember who used the term 3,000. I can't remember if it was him or her, so I apologize. I tried to make sure I got the quote right, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But so they tried to take away Rush Limbaugh's freedom of speech. Now, he was playing fast and loose with the rules.
Well, you know what else is kind of funny? She can afford to pay for law school, but she can't afford to pay for that.
Right, and if Rush Limbaugh was here, he'd be like, that's right! Ted Coley, that's exactly right. How can you afford to pay for law school, but you can't afford to get contraception, right? And poor people, they don't get to pay for contraception. They have 7 babies, right? Or, they have an abortion, and now you're down another slippery slope.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to discuss these things. Well, at the end of the day, Sandra Fluke, whatever happened to her?
I don't know.
I looked it up right before the show. She ended up being a social justice lawyer. Yeah. So again, the left was trying to take away Rush Limbaugh's freedom of speech. You see what I'm saying? And the right clamps down. Just this week, I can't remember the name of the company. I think it was Sinclair. They said that from now on, our newscasters are only going to say what we allow them to say. Right? And that's a right-wing media saying, no, we're all going to march in the same line. And I guarantee you, Fox News if Fox News, we'll use Laura Ingram, right? Laura Ingram goes to sleep. She wakes up in the morning. She goes, you know what? This whole David Hogg mess has made me see the light. Okay? I am now pro-choice. I am now, uh,
Anti-gun.
pro-choice, anti-gun. David Hogg changed me. He flipped me. David Hogg was 100% right. You know how fast Fox News would fire her? People's heads would spin because they'd be throwing her on the curb so goddamn fast. Okay? And again, they have token liberals. Like, who is that token liberal who used to be with Hannity?
Oh, Alan Combs.
Alan Combs, right? So you are suppressing speech. We are Nobody seems to get that once you suppress their speech, they suppress your speech. Like, nobody gets it. And Bill Maher was refreshing. I'm not a big fan of Bill Maher.
No.
But at least he came out and he understands. You have to try and win in the theater of ideas.
Yeah.
You know, you can't tell that guy to shut up and then you get all the speech you want. Well, eventually, that person that you shut up is going to turn around and try and take your speech away. And then at the end of the day, nobody has free speech. Okay? That's why we're beacon of speech. And again, when I started this webcast, I'm like, are we even going to have stuff to talk about every week? Me and you talk about this all the time. How in the world are we still having topics like every week? Like nobody gets it. Facebook, okay? Right now, they're trying to clamp down on fake news, right? They clamped down just this week, and I saw it on the Drudge Report. They clamped down on some website had a non-traditional picture of the crucifixion. And Facebook banned it because they said they didn't recognize it as Christianity. And they just saw the crucifixion and they banned it under violence. You know, that's too violent to be on Facebook. Oh crap, that was the cross? No, we're good. Put it back on Facebook. You see what I'm saying? Because I used to say when I was a kid all the time, I think it's weird that the symbol of Christianity, I don't know why they didn't have the fish, right? Instead, they have a crucifixion. You're going to nail some guy up on the cross. There's very few things in the world that's more violent than a crucifixion, right? Your religion is, the symbol is crucifixion. Now, I understand what it symbolizes. Christ died and then he came back, you know. But you could pick different things. You could pick a Bible, you know. But instead, we all have the cross to remind it. Well, the cross is violent. The cross is a reminder of violent death. So Facebook is banning stuff, and they're like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean to ban religious symbols. Well, no. You say that, but you ban, you know, what is banned and what is not banned. And now they're trying to ban fake news. Well, what's fake news? What's fake news to you might not be fake news to me. Right? Everybody is trying to control the message. They're like, well, that message came from Russia. Just because the message came from Russia doesn't mean it's a wrong message. You see what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with Bill Maher. Even though I don't agree with Bill Maher, if he is factually correct, I'm not going to come out and say, Bill Maher's an idiot. Because you have to listen to what Bill Maher's content is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's like in one of his last interviews, John Lennon said, he goes, you know, somebody comes along with a piece of truth, and instead of listening to the message, people look at the messenger.
Right.
And they shoot the messenger or, you know,
right.
And don't listen to the message.
Right. Oh, and Ted, that's the exact point of my message. And we are messengers, they're the messengers. A lot of messengers have agendas, okay? And even though I got the beacon of speech hat on, okay, there are limits to free speech, okay? But, and we'll go back to the Sandra Fluke, Rush Limbaugh example, both people were putting their feet into the dirt. You can't see it on camera, okay? But they're like, we're going to lock in our position, and then we're going to try and shut that other person up, okay? Rush Limbaugh shouldn't have said what he said, but he was using flowery language to get his point across. Which, Ted, let me ask you a personal question. How often do I use exaggeration to get my point across?
Constantly?
Constantly! Okay? Every single day. Every once in a while, Ted will laugh, and he'll be like, I know Fred's exaggerating, right? But I understand the point that Fred's trying to make. Now, you are a real nuts and bolts, fact-based guy, okay? You don't exaggerate very often like I do, okay? But that's just two different ways of speaking. You speak one way, I speak the same way, okay? If we both screamed on the camera, we'd both be yelling in the camera, we'd both be pushing each other trying to, get to the camera.
I do remember, like, I think I was listening to the show when Rush Limbaugh was saying that.
Yeah.
The odd thing is that I don't remember him saying round heel or whatever. I don't remember that.
Well, again, I took it and because I printed it straight out. All I did was cut and paste straight from the website. Okay? So, and I know this is 5 years ago? And the only reason I'm revisiting it today is because that was the first time I remember, like, every advertiser pulling, right? And I remember Rush Limbaugh saying, this is the new way the left tries to shut up the right. Yank the advertisers, put pressure on the advertisers. You don't put pressure on the people who run it. You put the pressure on the advertisers. There's a new way of shutting people up in the year 2012. Well, 2018, you can see what happened to her. She was using that as her agenda to try and defeat somebody on the right. Just like Rush Limbaugh was making fun of this girl. He was slut-shaming her to try and get her to shut up. Mm-hmm. They were both attacking each other, trying to shut the other up, instead of trying to get the idea, how do we fix the problem, right? And Rush Limbaugh is saying, we should never pay for contraception. She's like, all women should have contraception for free. Okay? Now, Ted Coley, how do you feel?
How do I feel about what?
Women having contraception, should they get it for free?
Well, you know what? I think everything should be free. You know what I mean? Because you can make an argument for anything. It's like, right. I need a house. Yeah. Why can't I just get a house?
Right.
I can't afford a house. Why can't they just provide it for me?
Right.
Because I need it.
And the same thing goes for health care. Same thing goes for everything that you need. Well, what is a right in America?
Because once you pay for one thing for somebody, that sets a precedent.
Right.
Well, if you're going to pay for this, why can't you pay for that?
Right.
Why can't you pay for my food? Why can't you pay for my car? Why can't you pay for... All those things cost a lot of money, and I don't have it.
Right. And we just made the joke about Rush Limbaugh. If he was saying, he'd be clapping, setting off camera. Right now, you know what happened? Rush Limbaugh would walk right over here and kiss you. Right now. He'd be like, Ted Coley, you come on the Rush Limbaugh show. You're going to be my special guy. Because you are right. Where do you draw the line?
Right.
Do you give money to the poor? How much do you give to the poor? Blah, blah, blah. And like I said, Rush Limbaugh is not always right. But he has certain ideas that when I started listening to Rush Limbaugh show, like Rush Limbaugh, and we talked about this on Beacon of Speech before, he used to say that poverty in America is not like poverty in India. He said he went to India and people are literally starving in the streets, flies on the eyeballs. And he goes, and then I come home and I'm driving through the streets of the city and I see the worst urban slum in America and there's satellite dishes on every, on every porch. And I go drive by and I don't see 20-year-old cars. I see new cars in the parking lot. He goes, being poor in America is not like being poor in India, right? And then he's like, you hate poor people. Well, no, that's the left attacking Rush Limbaugh. The truth is somewhere in between. And that's where, in America, there's no common sense.
Yeah.
Like, there is a common sense between the left and the right. And nobody wants to do it because... now you're digging in your heels, and I'm in my position, and I'm not listening to you. And
see, and the thing is we have $21 trillion of debt,
right,
because of things like this,
right,
because nobody can say no,
right.
And the thing is, I think the founding fathers, when they wrote the Constitution, they actually knew this.
Yeah,
that's why they wanted limited federal government,
right,
because they knew it was going to grow out of control.
But I just wrote something, and you can hear the phone in the background. I apologize. What do you think? It's probably a bill collector. No, it's not. But the point of my story is the founding fathers. I remember reading something, and it was just this week. Okay, the founding fathers had an idea, and it was a good idea, and I can't remember what it was. Okay, but then I read in the comments section, "I am tired of rich white people dictating," and I'm like, are they talking about the founding fathers being rich white people? And they said the founding fathers were the perfect example of white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh. And I'm so tired of hearing about white privilege. And again, we were joking around. The phone just rang, and I said, "Is it a bill collector?" Right? Because are we getting the good end of white privilege here? And it would be like, "Oh, well, Fred, you should have worked harder, or you should have invested your money better, or whatever." Okay?
Well, you know what else is funny? Like when they were talking about, because they're talking about white privilege lately, and they were like, 95% of these people are white, 95% of owners of NFL teams. It's like, and they keep going down the list, or people who have high positions in government, 95.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm white and I'm none of those things.
Yeah. And I think the same thing. And what people don't understand in America, and they're like, well, it's not fair. Nobody who looks like me who's in charge, right?
So the white people must be discriminating against me, too.
Well, yeah. Because are we the richest nation in the world?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's go. We're gonna hop on a plane. We're going to Saudi Arabia. Okay, me and you are flying out to Saudi Arabia. Okay. How many white people are leaders in Saudi Arabia?
None.
None. They're all Muslims, right? Now, granted, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, it's all different types of Muslims, right? How would you like to be a white person in Saudi Arabia? How's that going to work out for you?
Not well.
How is a white Christian going to work out for you?
Not well.
Not well. Now, let's go over to Rhodesia. Okay, my favorite example, Rhodesia, Zaire, Zambia, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How is a white Christian... Now, we're going to get in trouble because I said Rhodesia. I know it's not Rhodesia anymore. How's that going to work for us being the white minority? White Christians.
Not well.
Not well. Okay? Now, in America, that is correct. That the whites are in charge, and that is the people who have the money, right? They do. But that is not the way it is in the world. Okay? That is the way it is in America. And how is it going to be for me and you? We're like, you know what? We're going to move to China. Okay? There's 1 billion people in China. How is the white Christian going to do in China? Okay? And again, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we expect somebody with white privilege to say that. Okay? I'm like, you can argue that in America, but you cannot argue that in the world. And even when you argue that in America, there's still more poor white people than poor black people. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, well, percentage-wise, there's a higher percentage of poor...
It almost seems like, talking about Sandra Fluke, it almost seems like the federal government has so much money and power that every individual becomes like a lobbyist to get some of that.
Right. And so what I'm sorry.
I mean, is that an accurate way to look at that? Like, she's like lobbying the federal government for money, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, and that's the whole thing. Everybody wants the money, right? It's not fair that our
and the thing is that I think the founding fathers knew that was going to happen, so they didn't want the federal government to have so much power.
Right.
It's a necessary evil. You have to have a central government.
Right. Somebody has to build the roads,
and then the natural thing that follows is that thing that you have to have just wants more and more power.
Right.
But you have to have it.
Right.
So they were trying to figure out a way to limit the inevitable.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Every government in history has always gone down this road. We are going to try something new. We are going to try the Constitution.
Because the Constitution was mainly made, its main purpose was to try and rein in the size of government.
Exactly. And so once you start trotting out things like white privilege, you are trying to circumvent the Constitution. You're trying to say, well, white people wrote the Constitution. So the white privilege of the Constitution guarantees the rights of the whites. It's like, now you're eroding the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And people turn around, well, we think the Constitution's hard. Okay, well, then write a new Constitution. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're gonna redo it.
You know how much work that would be?
Oh, it's so much work.
Just give me what I want. I don't want to have to work. And
nobody wants to work at the job that they have. They all want to be rich and tell that guy to work. Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody wants to be the man who tells the guy to work, but gets the money off of the guy who's working, and that's what America's turned into. Right? I'm going to make money off of that guy. How can I trick that guy into making me money? Okay? And it's like, well, that's what the founding fathers did. Okay? I'm tired of we are not in this together at all in America anymore. It is like we are, how much trillion in debt? You said it.
21 trillion.
$21 trillion in debt. Right? We are not in this together. Who's going to pay that debt? The rich! The rich!
Yeah.
Right? Well, we hate the rich because they're rich white people, so we're going to make them pay down the debt.
Well, you know what else is funny? It's like there's people who will say, yeah, but $21 trillion, that really doesn't matter. It's like, well, then why not make it $100 trillion?
Why not make it a billion or a gazillion? Right? You have to try and rein in the debt. Because if you don't rein in the debt, one day you wake up and you're grease. Mm-hmm. And you are screwed. You are in a perpetual hole that you cannot get out of.
But you know what? It is funny, though. It's like, you wonder if that will ever happen, because it's like, no matter how bad off we are, we're still the biggest fish in the pond.
Right. Right. And again, we're not ahead, right? But I would rather be poor in America than any other. I ain't going to India. I ain't going to China, right? I'm just saying that people are looking at it in an American perspective. And if you look on the world, right, I almost wish the aliens would attack, okay? Because if the aliens attacked, we'd be like, holy crap, we better work together or else we are all dead.
Yeah. At least we would be unified.
I'm sick of hearing about the Russians. Okay, the Russians cannot come over and march over and take over us. Okay, in my head, the Russians are like our mean older brother, mean, snotty younger brother. We are on the same team.
Well, it's funny because we're talking a lot. We started talking about Rush Limbaugh.
Right.
And just things that we're saying makes me think more of things that Rush Limbaugh has said.
Right.
One of the things he always says is that basically, in general, people in this country have it so good that they have to invent their problems.
Right.
And it seems like that's all we do is invent conflict.
Right. And that's the whole thing. There are not people starving on when I walk down the street, I don't have to step over a body. Mm-hmm. Okay. For the most part, Americans have it good compared to other countries. And when I say Americans, I mean, I'm going to use a sports analogy. Everybody says that the Southeast Conference in football is the best conference in football because they always win the national championship. And then other people come out and say, well, no, the Big Ten's better because they're better from top to bottom. And they're like, SEC's like, oh, no, that's garbage. We have better athletes in the SEC. And you can argue about who's better, the SEC or the Big Ten. In the grand scheme of things, it does not matter who's better, the SEC or the Big Ten. It's just arguing points. You're arguing because you can argue, right? Americans can argue about the silliest things because top to bottom, richest to the poorest, America is in better shape than almost any country in the world, okay? And the only countries that's not better than are like tiny little countries that have like 500,000 people of the same race, nationality. Nobody argues because they look in the mirror and they look just like their neighbor. You see what I'm saying? The Norways of the world, or there's a small country in Africa, and I can't remember what the name of it is. And it's like off the coast of Madagascar, and they said we don't have any problems. We don't do sports. We don't do this because we understand the economy. And the country has like 1 million people in the whole country, right?
Now, is Madagascar, is that island off the...
Yes.
Okay.
It's the island off of Africa.
But you're saying that there's a country that's a small island off that island?
A small island away from Madagascar. And they're like, we don't have any problems. You know, everybody looks the same. We don't have any social injustice because we're all just, you know, we look in the mirror and we're all the same. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know. If I had the globe, we'd grab the globe if we were at Ted's house. But now you're inventing problems to circumvent the Constitution. And if there was a better form of government, you'd be like, holy cow, let's do it like the Russians. You're like, oh, crap, we don't want to do it like the Russians. And last time I checked, the Russians, to me, Russians are white. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay. Again, how many times do I have to say it? The only people I worry about are the Chinese, because the Chinese can take 400 million people, parachute them down into America, and they'd still have 1 billion people to run China. Mm-hmm. Right? And you don't hear China talking about minority rights. They talk about, you see Tibet, we're going to crush those people under our foot. You see the Muslims on the eastern part of China, we're going to crush them under our foot. They're going to disappear in the night. Okay? People who talk bad about America or try and circumvent democracy, they do not disappear into the night. Now, you could say, well, you shoot people in the streets. Okay? Well, when I think of people getting shot in the streets, I think of that poor girl who got shot in Minnesota. Right? She went out and she got shot by the cop, and they're like, oh, crap. We shot that girl. The cops shoot everybody in the street. Now, if you are a minority, you are more likely to get shot in the streets. But when you are pushing an agenda when you introduce race into it. And again, if you go by pure numbers, okay, who is getting killed in the streets of America? In percentage-wise, it is more likely to be a black American, right? You cannot argue with the numbers. But then you could turn around and say, is the city where he was shot in, okay, and we'll use Cleveland for it got dead quiet in here because we're treading lightly.
I'm also because I'm like hearing noises, like, and I wonder what they are.
Oh, Kevin's growling.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, Kevin's growling at somebody out front.
Is Kevin disrupting our broadcast?
Yes, Kevin is. That's why we don't like doing over here, because there's distractions all over the place. You're like, what the hell is going on? Kevin is growling at somebody. Okay, but anyhow.
He's not growling at me, is he?
Let's take a city.
Is Kevin giving me the eye?
We are going to take a city, okay? We're going to take Chicago, okay? We're going to use an example. Chicago, in the parts of Chicago, there are some parts of Chicago are 100% black, 98% black, whatever the thing is. A white cop shoots a black citizen, and that should not happen. But the white cop was not going through a white neighborhood and singling out the black guy and shooting the black guy. Now, you could argue, if you are in Chicago and it's the population is 98% black, why can't you recruit a black cop? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, no blacks want to apply to be cops. Well, why don't they want to apply to be cops? Well, that job sucks. We got to get white people from the suburbs to come in to be cops. Well, it goes back to, if it was a good job, people would want it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a neighborhood that's 98% black, and they're like, we want to hire a cop, you should be able to hire a black person to be a cop in the black neighborhood. Does that make sense? And you're like, well, what? It's a great job. Screw that. I want that. That sounds like a shitty job. Okay?
It is funny because that's always like the first thing I think of too. Like,
Right.
well, why don't they just have all black cops?
Yeah. And again, it's your neighborhood. Now, when it's an all-white neighborhood and it's a black kid, that is 100% different. Okay? But a lot of these shootings are in black neighborhoods by white cops. Okay? And these are the ones that the media push to circumvent certain, and they're like, well, the white cops keep shooting. Okay, how about this? If you're in a black neighborhood, you're gonna hire black cops. Well, we can't do that. Well, why not? Because nobody wants to do it. Because the job sucks. Right?
Yeah.
You live right down the street from Cleveland, okay? Cleveland, you get laid off of your job. You get laid off your job. They said, we need black cops we need cops, not black cops, I'm sorry. You're not black. We need cops on the east side of Cleveland. We are going to pay you $10,000 less a year, what you were doing at your last job, to be a cop in this black neighborhood in Cleveland. Are you interested, Ted Coley?
No.
No. And I'm not interested either. Now, cops have the hardest job in the world without handcuffing what they can do, what they can't do. For all I know, I'm going to get shot by a cop in my neighborhood because, I'm on the lower end of my white neighborhood, right? In my neighborhood, if you go through my neighborhood and you look at my house and you look at the houses on the other end of town, I am in the poor part of the town, okay? One day, if I yank out a gun, I just watched a white guy get shot on the Daily Mail. It was somewhere in Texas, just today. White guy got shot. Cop was white. Guy was white. He was drunk. And it was somewhere in Texas. And you could tell he was white trash, right? It did not make CNN. It did not make MSNBC. It did not make NBC. I read about the guy who got shot, the white guy who got shot by the white cop, in the Daily Mail because it was news, but it didn't push the agenda that CNN is trying to push. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And everybody today is pushing an agenda.
Yeah, because they want to make everybody as angry as possible.
Right. But again, and Chris Rock's like a prophet, okay? Chris Rock said maybe the smartest thing I've ever heard, okay? Chris Rock says, listen, he goes, I'm tired of hearing about bad cops. Did I tell you about this?
No, I don't think so.
I am tired of hearing about black cops or bad cops.
Because I like
Chris Rock. I like Chris Rock too. I'm tired of hearing about bad cops. He goes, you never hear about bad pilots, right? And they're like, Jimmy over there, 1 in every 10 planes that he flies the plane, but then he crashes it.
I can just picture him saying this.
And he goes, American Airlines doesn't go on the news and say, listen, we got a few bad pilots. Right? And I stole that straight from Chris Rock. Because Chris Rock is so goddamn right.
Yeah.
Okay? American doesn't say, they don't get on TV and say, we got a few bad pilots. Right? They're like, we gotta fire that guy. That guy keeps crashing. Every time we turn around, he's crashing a plane. For God's sakes, don't let Jimmy fly any more planes. Jimmy, you're going to have to drive the bus, and try not to drive the bus. Right? If being a cop was a great job, they would be turning people away. Yeah. They'd be like, you know what? We have more than enough cops. We got all these great cops over here.
So you're saying the reason they have bad cops is because nobody wants to do it.
Nobody wants to do it.
So you have to basically take what you get.
Nobody wants to take one of the hardest jobs in America, right? And going back to the, neighborhood in Chicago example, okay?
So in other words, we would get rid of that bad cop, but who's going to replace him?
Yeah, who's going to replace him? Air? We won't have cops. And it goes back to that neighborhood in Chicago, and I don't know, we just use Chicago, right? Kids, listen, when you grow up, you can change Chicago. There's not going to be any more cops shooting black kids, right? We're only going to have black cops, and we're going to pay you so much money you can raise your family and you're going to have money, left over, like a pilot. A pilot is a comfortable living.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like a politician would come out and say, do you know how much that would cost to pay all those cops? Oh my God. And then you give them the... So it all turns around back to money, right? If it was a good job in a black neighborhood where the black kids want to grow up to be cops and they can make a good living, they would be pushing each other over to get that great job, there'd be a waiting list.
Yeah.
Just like on the east side of Cleveland. You get those cops to get the Cleveland job so they can say they're cops, right? And then as soon as they can get out to the suburbs, they're like, we're getting the hell out of Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
So are you willing to take the crappiest job in a minority neighborhood because the minorities don't want to take the job?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you're taking a short narrative, or you're taking a long narrative and making it.
Yeah, and it's funny
narrative.
because the cities that have a lot of money, they don't generally have a lot of crime,
right?
So they can afford to pay the policeman more money,
right? And the cities that don't have a lot of money can't afford to pay their policemen.
Yeah.
So then you get the crappy cops who are stressed out and they're like, oh, their hands are shaking, and you're like, oh crap.
So the guy who's a cop in a nice city is making more money to do a lot easier job.
Right. Which is, again, what we were saying, the American way. How do we pay that guy? The people who have the hard jobs are the one. This week, there's teachers striking in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like everything becomes a vicious cycle.
In Oklahoma, they're striking for more money. What was the other state? It was 2 states. It was Oklahoma
Kentucky, wasn't it?
Oklahoma and Kentucky. They said that there's teachers in Oklahoma, something like 80% of them have a minimum of 2 jobs because they cannot make ends meet as a teacher. And again, if they were great jobs, they say in America we're down to 4% unemployment, right? Mm-hmm. You're down to 4% unemployment. But you can't go anywhere without saying help wanted, right? You're driving down the street right now. Me and you hop in the car, right? By the time we hit the corner, I'm going to hit one help wanted sign, right? Help wanted sign right at the corner right here. It's for a daycare, right? Minimum wage. Ted Coley, are you interested in working minimum wage to take care of other people's kids who scream all day, and if you touch those kids, they're probably going to sue you?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not interested.
Okay. Next building down, they're hiring too. You know what that building is?
Is it like a gas station or something?
McDonald's. Are you interested in working nights and weekends at McDonald's making Big Macs and cheeseburgers?
No.
Next building down is Mark's. It's a discount department store. They're hiring. They actually have a table at the front of the desk. They're hiring, okay? Minimum wage. You get to work the register for old retirees on set pensions who are going to argue with you about how much bread costs. Okay? Are you interested in being a cashier at Mark's for minimum wage and have old people yell at you?
No.
Okay, we're going to keep going, Ted. We're going right down the street. Okay? Going right down the street. Okay, next place down is hiring. Mr. Hero, do you have interest in making submarine sandwiches for people?
No.
Who are going to yell at you?
Now I want Mr. Hero, though.
I love Mr. Hero. I want to eat there. But listen, they're hiring, okay?
But then if I do go to Mr. Hero, somebody's going to have to pay for my bypass.
We're going to criticize Mr. Hero.
Sandra Fluke.
When I go to Mr. Hero, how often do you go to Mr. Hero?
Never. That's probably why I want it.
I love Mr. Hero. We go to Mr. Hero about once every 2 months because you know why we don't go more often?
Because it's expensive?
Because it's expensive, and we walk in, you order at Mr. Hero, and it takes them 8 minutes to make your food, and you don't care because you smell Mr. Hero. You're watching TV, and you're like, Mr. Hero's beautiful, right?
Now, do you think Mr. Hero is going to sue us?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Hero's suing us for sure. Okay? But this has been happening since I was a kid. Mr. Hero's business plan has not changed. So Mr. Hero, when they have 4 customers, you're sitting there for a half an hour, okay? Because they only got 3 people working. And you're like, please just make my sandwich. Screw those other 3 people, right? And as you're thinking that, you get the old person in front of you who goes up to the table and says, is my food almost done? Every time I go to Mr. Hero, somebody's complaining it's taking too long for my food to get done. How long before my food gets done? Right? Screw that other guy. So it's literally 4 people.
Yeah, hurry up. I have to go home and watch TV.
Yeah, 4 people at Mr. Hero.
I have to. I'm in a hurry. I have to go home and stare at the wall.
Yeah, 4 people who are like, screw that other guy. I want my Mr. Hero, and I don't want to stand here for a half an hour. Okay? I do not want to go to Mr. Hero and be the guy that they scream at, please hurry up and make my food. And don't tell me it doesn't happen. It happens to me every single time I go to Mr. Hero. Okay? So I could get hired in 4 places, and we just drove 1 mile. Okay? Do you want to spend the rest of your life doing any of those jobs?
No.
So when they say there's jobs on every corner of America, now, let's turn around. Let's go back to the daycare. Okay? We're going to go back to the daycare. We're going to re-examine these jobs in order. We're going to go back to the daycare. Ted, I am going to pay you $100,000 a year to be in charge of the daycare. Okay? It's a corporate daycare, and it's a chain of daycares across Ohio. Okay? And you don't have to watch any kids. You just have to tell those schlubs to watch the kids. Are you interested in that job?
That I'll do.
Okay. Now,
I'm willing to do that.
Ted, they're not hiring for that position. They're only hiring the schlub. Okay? But if you work as a daycare teacher for 10 years, maybe you can apply to be the 100,000. Do you have 10 years?
Not anymore.
Yeah, well, and that's a point. No offense. Look at Ted. Look at me. Neither one of us have 10 years. Okay? Now, we're going to keep going back down the line.
We might not have 10 years, period.
If you go to
between us.
If you work at do you feel like you can work your way up in 10 years at McDonald's? Now, there's the great scam of McDonald's. You're working with 20 other people, and if the 20 other people work hard and you work hard, only one of them can be the manager in 10 years. If all 20 people work hard, all 20 of them can't go to be the manager of McDonald's.
Yes, they can.
Yes, if they just work hard. That's our old boss. He would say that all the time. You just work hard. It just happens. And then you go back to the Marx example, right? Nobody's getting paid at Marx. Even I know people who actually ran Marx. They said they were barely making more money than the cashiers. And then if you go back to Mr. Hero, there's only 3 people who work at Mr. Hero. The person at the register, the person making the hamburgers, and the guy who's doing the fries and stuff. There's never more than 3 people at Mr. Hero. That's why it takes a half an hour for, right? So if you're one of those 3 people...
Well, those 3 people need to work faster.
Yeah. I hope nobody from Mr. Hero's watching this, because I love Mr. Hero. But their service is horrible.
I'm not knocking Mr. Hero. But I'm just saying, you know the philosophy of people.
Yeah. And like I said, the good jobs all have lines to get them, okay? And I remember
they need to come up with a system, minutes per Roman burger or something.
Well, but that's the whole thing, because I worked at a Taco Bell. They have a system. You know what I mean? I came up with the system. I should be promoted. Well, everybody has a system, right? Do you remember, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, Ted, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Do you remember that they put up giant billboards in Cleveland? They were looking for Cleveland cops. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I believe it.
Yeah, it was like, please apply to be a Cleveland cop. And they had it in the neighborhoods, and they're thinking, you're a small minority child, and you're like, when I grow up, I'm going to change things. I'm going to be a cop. I saw that billboard. That just gave me an idea, right? And that's the whole thing. It's like, good jobs are hunted to extinction, and crappy jobs, you shake a stick and they fall out of trees.
Well, did I ever tell you that my friend used to say the want ads should be called the don't want ads? Because it's the jobs that nobody wants that are in the paper.
And if you notice, if you're looking in the want ads, they are the crappy jobs. If you want the good job, you have to go to that company's website. Well, how do you know that company's looking? Well, now you're moving people who want good jobs, and we'll use Apple as an example. Say people, Apple's not advertising at cleveland.com. You have to go to the Apple site, and then you got to jump through 50 hoops to work at Apple. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you're jumping through the 50 hoops to work at Apple. Each time you go to the Apple site, they're registering you as a click. So not only are they getting your interest in jobs, Ted's distracted because now Kevin ran to the door. Crystal's home. That's what's going on.
Well, you know what's funny is that Kevin can't figure out how to get like around this cord.
Well, yeah, you know what he'll do? He'll pull the lamp. What happens is there's a cord pulling from the table. We had to add the lamp because we were all bleached out. We had to pull the crappy blinds here. Okay. They're at the door. We're getting guests. Okay, Kevin figured out how to circumvent. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Oh, be careful. We got the family coming in, so usually we're not getting the interruptions, but that's all right. Hello, hello, everybody. Is everybody okay? No problems.
No, there was a car accident, so.
Where's there a car accident?
Right at the stop sign by Liberty.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it bad?
There's broken glass everywhere.
Is it one of the mobs from the neighborhood?
I hope so.
Looks like a guy your age and then an older lady.
A guy my age, so two old people?
No, and an old lady.
No, I know. I'm just teasing. So, was anybody from the daycare at the corner of the...
No, it wasn't that way. It was over by Liberty.
No, I know. I was being a smart aleck. We're just talking about the daycare at the corner of the street. So, but yeah, you have to be able to talk about things, and all people ever do is they put in their prism, and then they aim their prism in a certain way. It's like there is no us anymore. It's all us versus them. We're having trouble with lighting. We had to put the lamp over there, and then Kevin was trouble. He was having trouble circumventing the wire.
Yourself?
So, we'll move on from there. I wrote an article about Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's artwork. Are you a fan of Jim Carrey's artwork?
Well, today was the first day I saw it, and yeah, kind of.
I like his artwork too. Beacon of Speech wrote an article about I like Jim Carrey's artwork, but I don't like Jim Carrey. Right? When is he going to go back to making funny movies?
Probably never.
Because Dumb and Dumber, right? How many times did you say you watched that?
I lost track. I watched
a
it
minimum
lot.
of 2 dozen, right? How many times you watched Dumb and Dumber 2?
Probably twice.
And the second time you're like, oh,
The
you're
second
too
time I
lazy
was
to
bored.
change the TV.
Yeah.
And so when is Jim Carrey making the next great movie where you're like, I'm going to watch it over and over and over and over again?
I don't know. I don't see that coming.
Yeah, I don't think that's coming either. You know why? Because he's painting, and it's all about politics. We're going to attack the right. We hate the right. The right sucks. Trump sucks. Everything on the right sucks. But he doesn't look in the mirror at how horrible he is. And we were talking about how horrible celebrities are.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Carrey is literally, when you think of horrible Hollywood celebrities, he is a horrible Hollywood celebrity. I mean, that girl killed herself because of him. And there's no two ways about it. Okay? He may not have been liable in a court to the family of the girl.
Was this recent? Or?
Yeah, he buried her. He put her in the ground last year. And then what happened is after they put her in the ground, then the family sued him. And they said, well, the family's a piece of work too. They were all horrible people. They were all gold diggers. She wasn't a gold digger. They were. You see what I'm saying? And Jim Carrey, you know, he wants to work. He wants the public to love him because he's the wonderful Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, oh, no, that girl, she randomly killed herself. It just happened, you know? So, but you like the artwork.
Yeah, like I said, that was the first time I ever saw any of it. But
Right.
yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to go somewhere with that. I'm
No.
sorry. I mean to step on your thing. So,
I keep looking at your outline, and it looks like it says robot, but it's what is it?
Reboot. It says, would you watch the All in the Family reboot? And we were talking about this right before we came on the air because it's on the syllabus there. Everybody's comparing Roseanne to All in the Family, and I'm working on an article about.
Now, are they considering an All in the Family reboot?
No,
This?
no.
Oh, okay. This
is my article. This is me using
This
my.
is only happening in your mind.
This is only my vivid imagination. Okay. You could do the All in the Family reboot. Now, when you think of All in the Family, who do you think of? You tell me, who do you think of in your head? You have to tell me.
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker. Okay, Archie Bunker. Okay. Who else? Name all the people that you can think of in All in the Family.
Edith.
Edith. Okay.
Now
Now those two have passed away.
Right.
Okay, so they can't.
they're not coming back.
You can't dig them up like Lennon and prop them up in the corner.
Right.
Okay. Who else do you think of when you think of All in the Family?
Meathead.
Meathead. He's alive. He's 70 years old. He's still working.
Mike Stivic.
And Gloria.
Gloria Stivic.
She's still alive. Now, are they still working? Yes. Rob Reiner and Gloria, Sally Struthers, they're still working. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to impugn people, but I will. Okay? Sally Struthers, I get the impression anybody who calls her, she will work. Okay? She has no prism. You know, we're doing a horror movie. We want you to be victim number 3. And she'd be like, what sound set do you want me on? Okay? Sally Struthers is working. Okay? She was just on Gilmore Girls last year. Okay? Rob Reiner is more discerning. He has FU money, you know, because he's a filmmaker and an actor. But we're going to pretend like he doesn't have FU money, okay? Say he doesn't have FU money. You could offer it to him, and he'd be like, okay, I will do it. And me and Sally Struthers, we would be Meathead and, you know, Gloria. But there's a catch. Did you ever watch Archie Bunker's Place?
Yeah.
Did you like Archie Bunker's Place?
No.
You and a lot of other people didn't. There was a little girl in Archie Bunker's
Yeah.
Place. It was like Denise.
Yeah.
Right? Danielle Brucebar or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
She's still around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? She's still working in Hollywood. She's our age. She's 48 years old.
Wasn't she like a punk rocker or something?
I don't know. But she's a musician. Okay? No matter what way you slice it, she's a musician. You could reboot All in the Family, and you could get Gloria and Mike. You can get the girl from Archie Bunker's Place, and you could call it All in the Family.
And the thing is, you can't even get any of the Jeffersons because they're all gone.
They're all gone. You can't get the Jeffersons. And you could say Mike and Gloria's children all turned out conservative, like
Alex Keaton.
not like Alec, like Archie Bunker, right? And you can play off of it. And you know who else is still alive and working? You'll get a kick out of this.
Who?
Who else is still alive and working in relation to All in the Family? Norman Lear.
Oh, okay.
He's 95 years old, and
Wow.
he just pitched a sitcom. It was all about senior citizens, and I think the name of the sitcom was Who's Next, meaning who's the next person to die, right? And it's a comedy about living in a nursing home. Okay? No, I'm being serious.
He still has it.
So you could put Norman Lear in charge and have these people come back and then have the next generation of All in the Family. Norman Lear is another one. He'd be like, Norman Lear, will you do next generation of All in the Family? He'd be like, yes! I love Rob Reiner. Bring Rob Reiner. Me and Rob Reiner. Right?
Who's the... Carl Reiner is still around.
Yes.
And he's about 95.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. You could feasibly still do All in the Family. And, let me ask you,
Why not just make Carl Reiner Archie Bunker?
yeah, you could just replace one actor.
Just put him in the chair.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I'm writing in the article. You could bring back the chair and say Rob Reiner, he made a man cave in his basement, and he's got Archie's old chair over there. And, you know, they could put the hat on the chair, and, you know, Rob Reiner could be driven crazy by Archie Bunker, and he still yells at the chair, oh, Archie! You know, like he's still there. Okay, you could build it. And This is where I'm going with
So
this.
you're saying have Rob Reiner just arguing with a chair?
Yeah, he could argue with the chair and be like, Archie, I could hear you from the grave. And he wouldn't argue
Yeah,
with
just
him.
make it so that like Rob Reiner lost his mind and he's like arguing with a
Yeah,
chair.
he's arguing with the chair. Now, you can't do it for a half an hour, but every episode you can have Rob Reiner argue with the Archie chair, right? And because he's got his grandchildren, he's like, kids today, these millennials, And I remember back in the 70s when things, you could play that up. Now, this is the question I have for you, okay? AB was All in the Family on ABC or CBS?
I think it was CBS, but I'm not sure.
Okay. If you put All in the Family, the reboot, you bring back Mike, you bring only for 8 episodes.
Now I'm wondering. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
Well, let's just say CBS for argument's sake. Okay? CBS for argument's sake. If you brought that back for 8 episodes, okay, and then you put it on CBS, what do you think the ratings would be for the reboot of All in the Family with all original living cast, including Norman Lear?
it'll probably be pretty good.
Do you think it would be better than most of the stuff on CBS right now?
I think so.
I think so too. And again, it doesn't go back to, do you think it's the right thing to do? Do you think it would make money? And again, it doesn't go back to the quality of the show. And you're like, Archie Bunker would be rolling over, or not Archie Bunker. Carroll O'Connor would be rolling over in his grave. Well, it doesn't matter. You can take artists. They were just talking about at the Super Bowl. They were talking about having Prince do the, the fake Prince. Hologram. They were going to have the hologram of fake Prince performing at the Super Bowl. It's like, and I just wrote about the hologram of one of the guys from Star Wars. And they're going to have to do the hologram of Princess Leia in the last Star Wars movie. So, again, it doesn't matter whether it's a good idea or not. It's whether the idea would make money.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, oh, did you like Magnum P.I.?
I never really watched that.
Okay, let me give you another one. Did you like Cagney and Lacey?
Not really.
CBS is bringing back Cagney and Lacey this fall.
Really?
Yes.
With
oh, no. They're just bringing back the Cagney and Lacey name,
Oh.
and then they're going to be
With,
like...
who was it, Tyne Daly?
Yeah,
and,
they're not bringing them back.
Sharon Gless?
They're not bringing the girls back. They're bringing in the next generation of Cagney and Lacey. You see what I'm saying? So
are they really?
yes. CBS, because I guess they're talking... To me, there's a fine line. They want to bring... On NBC, they want to bring back The Office. Okay? But they don't want to bring back new actors. They want to bring back Jim and Pam. Michael Scott said he's not coming back, and I know it's not Michael Scott. But they want to bring back the originals with the original actors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that, okay? Because everybody wants to see how their favorites are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with the Cagney and Lacey reboot where people are like, oh, crap. That's not Cagney and Lacey, and they just turn it right back off. Because it's all about branding and tricking your viewers.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you did the All in the Family reboot, and they're like, but there's nobody from All in the Family, you can't do it. But CBS might be like, oh, that's a great idea. We'll say it's Archie Bunker's grandchildren, but we won't involve anybody from the original. Yeah, but they really are doing the...
I just... do you remember that show that John Ritter was on when he passed away?
Yeah.
8 Simple Rules.
8 Simple Rules for Dating My Daughter.
Well, I remember they were talking about, on Howard Stern, they were talking about, well, what are they going to do now that he passed away? How
Right.
are they going to do this on the show? And they were saying that one of the things that was floated, they were going to have John Lovitz, replace him.
Yeah.
And they were saying, what's he going to do? Be like, I'm John Ritter.
Yeah.
Hey. What are you talking about? I'm John Ritter.
And don't get me wrong, we'll use Bewitched as an example, because I know you love classic TV.
The thing that always drives me crazy is TV shows where something happens and they never address it.
Yeah.
Like there's a different Lionel on the Jeffersons.
Right.
It's like, What, we're not supposed to notice that?
Well, and because even Roseanne, wink, wink, they said, "Oh, this is the new Becky." Where have you been? They even winked at the audience. I understand that things happen where you have to replace an actor or two, right? And even if they don't explain it, but you still keep the main cast. But this whole, it's twofold. I think some of the shows from the past, they do so well when you reboot them with the originals because people miss, the Americana, the nostalgia,
Yeah.
and they were good shows, right?
Or maybe because everything's so bad now.
And everything is so bad, we want classic TV when TV was good.
Yeah.
And so it's twofold. But you can't be like CBS and say, "Oh, we're bringing back Hawaii Five-0." It's like, oh, you guys are idiots. There's got to be certain lines. And like I said, I'm not the biggest Roseanne fan. I can't get over that they're all comparing Roseanne to All in the Family because back in the 90s, I don't remember them comparing Roseanne to All in the Family. What had happened is Roseanne didn't change. Society changed. You see what I'm getting at? And just like the fake Fred, and this is not real at all. This is me, again, this is my imagination. If you take the Rob Reiner All in the Family reboot and you redid it, I'm convinced that if Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers were attached to it, people would watch it and they'd be like, this is better than 75% of the crap that's on TV now. Because it's Rob Reiner. We love Rob Reiner. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because Rob Reiner made that role.
Yeah, I was just watching All in the Family the other day.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the early ones. And it's like,
and
like most shows, the early ones were the best.
And that's the whole thing. I'm not picking All in the Family out of the air. I'm reading Roseanne is like All in the Family, and I read the article. And then I go on a different news site, and it's like Roseanne is like All in the Family. And I'm like, well, that's curious. I saw it on 5 different websites. Roseanne is the new All in the Family. And I'm like, number one, Roseanne's not new. And number 2, they weren't comparing it. In the 90s, they just weren't doing it. Because now you have...
I think it's because of the political...
It's because of the political charged nature of the times we live in.
Because like the original run of Roseanne, they weren't really political, were they?
No. And again, it's the times changed, not the show changed. You still got Darlene, and you still got Dan. Dan's back. You remember they said Dan's back from the grave. And it's like, well, no, he's not. John Goodman never died. I watched him in Blues Brothers 2000. Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly why he left, but, John Goodman, funny as ever. He was in the Cloverfield sequel. I remember him being real creepy in that. Is there a point to my story?
I don't know.
I think that the point of my story is times are changing, and even if you're dead wrong, no matter where you are, speech is getting limited, no matter what way you slice it, no matter which way. And Roseanne... 30 years ago, I'm sorry, not 30 years, 20 years ago was not politically charged. Same show, you put in a time capsule, you move it 20 years ahead, and all of a sudden, it's politically charged. Why? Because you are eroding what people can say. Roseanne,
the whole environment now is politically charged.
Yeah.
So everything that enters into the environment becomes...
Exactly. And like I said, even if I'm wrong, even if you're wrong about certain things, as long as you're not slanderous, you have to be able to talk in a politically open discourse, right? And again, people need to understand where they are. That you're in America. You are not in communist China, okay? One of the last articles I did for Beacon of Speech is people disappear, okay? In America, if you get arrested, where do you go? You go to jail. You get your rights read. You get your
rights read.
Rights read.
Red right 88.
Red right 88. You get your rights read. You know that they're in jail. Now, are people falsely imprisoned in America? Of course there are. Okay? But in China, people disappear. Let's say that you say China sucks. You're in China right now, right? We're doing Beacon of Speech Chinese version, okay? And me and you're talking, and you know what? China sucks, okay?
You might disappear just for that.
Oh yeah, I might disappear just for saying that in America. But say you say that in China, And then the next week, we're doing Beacon of Speech, and you're not here. Okay, move over, pretend like you're Archie Bunker. There's just an empty chair, right? And I'm like, we're doing Beacon of Speech, and something doesn't seem right. And you're like, well, Ted's gone. In China, you don't even talk about it. You're like, well, Ted just disappeared. And that's the way life is. That's why there's a huge difference, and people don't see that. Uh-oh, is there fighting upstairs?
No.
Okay, we'll wrap it up because we're at the 1 hour, 15-minute mark. I'm Fred Hunt, that's Ted Coley. We are Beacon of Speech. Song of the day, I'm picking song of the day, Herbie Hancock's Rockit. Dun 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 dun. I hit the button, but it didn't stop.